Okay, so there's these two creators that I follow. They're quite a bit younger than me. I respect them very much. Juicy Crone and then also B. I think their account is called Campaign Dispatch. Now, I don't politically agree with both of these creators on every issue. In fact, there are a number of times I've had pretty significant disagreements with their perspectives. That's super healthy. That's normal. That's fine. I am a big proponent of the big tent movement to stop fascism. I don't care. I don't care if we disagree on a whole host of things. If we are actual allies in the fight to defeat the fascists, then welcome. Let's be allies. Let's be partners in this work. I know we have a propensity on social media to silo ourselves and want to only listen to people whose politics we find entirely agreeable. And there can be this kind of like fear of contamination, of associating, of following, or heaven forbid, being mutuals with people who disagree with us on matters of policy and political theory. Likewise, there can be this weird parasociality. I've seen it a number of times when I've disagreed with another creator and their fans have been rabid and really fucking weird. Oh, she never misses. She's entirely, her opinions are always right? She has great takes 100% of the time. No, nobody is like that, right? I really would caution people from making an idol out of any social media creator, no matter how big their following, no matter their level of training. We're all human beings. And it's dangerous to prioritize one voice above all others. When people get into my comments and say, girl, you never miss, I'm like, I miss all of the time. I'm very human. I make honest mistakes, but also like I have opinions that may just be wrong, and I may not uncover my wrongness for years to come, right? As somebody who has deconstructed from a whole lot of wrong opinions that I held when I was much younger in my 20s, I'm well aware of the fact that I am incredibly flawed, and so is every other creator that you're going to see on social media. So when Juicy Crone or B says something that I disagree with, I don't feel an urge to block them. I'm not distressed by that. I understand that they're people who have opinions. And in any resistance movement, we may not agree on every issue of policy or tactics that we're going to undertake. We may have some folks in our movement who are a little bit more jaded and some who are a little bit more pie in the sky optimistic. Like that's normal and that's okay. And there's a place for all of those folks. We're all moving in the same direction, right? We're not all necessarily using the same tactics. We don't all necessarily agree on every single issue, but we are all moving in the same direction. We are aligned in our goal of stopping fascism and then creating an America that serves working class people, creating a just and functional society. So when I saw these two creators have this public disagreement, I didn't feel like I had to have loyalty to either one of them or had to get my hackles up in any way. I just was watching the back and forth exchange about whether or not laws still matter in this country. And I was like, this is a subject I have a lot of interest in. I've spoken quite a bit about this, and I have people in my comments on a daily basis who will say laws don't matter at all. Why are we bothering to file any litigation? Why are we bothering to use the courts when the laws don't matter? Why is it that we are saying so-and-so is breaking the law if the laws are not being upheld? And that's sort of what this conversation was back and forth. Let me play you a couple of clips because I understand the perspective of both of these creators, and I think they both are onto something here.
We actually are not past the point of checks and balances and law and order. Just like as a factual descriptive matter, that's not true, okay? And I want to address this comment in particular and many others like it that people have been leaving under the video that I made earlier this week talking about how it's literally not possible, not just as a matter of law, but as a matter of like resources, logistics, for the federal government to fix the 2026 midterm elections.
B's full video is like 10 minutes long. I think it's worth going and listening to the whole thing. In terms of that commenter saying, oh, people say they can't do that until they find out that like the law doesn't have any meaning anymore. No, it's really important that we point out that we are outraged that they are violating the law. Your outrage really matters. We set the expectation. We hold the line for the expectation that the rule of law can and must exist. And it's the regime who is breaking the law. That psychologically is so important. It's also important practically. The DOJ wanted to put 6 members of Congress in prison for telling the troops what the law is. And a grand jury said, no, we're going to follow the rule of law. We will not bring back an indictment against these folks. Our job right now is to insist that the law be followed. Our job right now is to not surrender the law to the fascists. If you back up off the line, they will pocket those rights and claim them, and then the law really doesn't exist. Our job here is to vigorously exercise our constitutional rights and to vigorously demand that the rule of law be upheld.
I like this creator a lot, but this is the most Ken Martin talking point I've possibly ever seen. People are pointing out that this country basically operated off of a gentleman's agreement for centuries. It's always been lawless to you if you were not a white man. And can we also remind ourselves that litigation for regular people is an incredibly slow and expensive process? And while the courts fight this stuff out, they're still trying to break injunctions and do whatever they want, and real people suffer because they do not have the resources to push back against this. The courts are fully overwhelmed, and they have shown us that their response is fully inadequate. When people say stuff like this, it's like the ultimate gaslighting. It truly makes me feel crazy. It makes me feel like you are trying to make me feel insane. It so reminds me of the Biden administration being like, the economy, this is like the best economy in recent times or whatever. And it's like, okay, technically that was true. Did it feel true?
And these two are extremely valid points. It is important that we pursue relief through the courts while also acknowledging that the courts can't save us, largely because they are expensive, difficult to access, especially when we are looking at the big law firms who previously would have done pro bono work, Skadden Arps, Paul Weiss. They have taken all of those resources and become fascist collaborators and given all of that pro bono law work to the regime. And so there are even fewer resources for people seeking relief against the government. And then likewise, the courts work too slowly for the rapid pace of the shock and awe of the regime. Now, we have found there are so many instances where the court ruling has made all of the difference. The courts are a component of this, but they are not the full solution. And it is foolish for us to expect, like, all we need to do is file some lawsuits, because that's not true. But look just at Portland, Oregon, and how many times the Trump regime has been held back and turned around and tacoed because of rulings in the courts, because of litigation that was successful. The work that our Attorney General, Dan Rayfield, is doing is crucially important. On its own, it's not enough. It's okay to understand that that tension exists. It's also okay to understand the way the courts are largely accessible to white, wealthy men, and that the rule of law has not been applied equally. And to say, like, that wasn't okay, that wasn't good, it doesn't mean we abandon the law. It means we start to apply it in a way that is equitable and just.
Even if it's true, assume for the sake of argument that it is true that no positive law matters at all. The entire institution of law is corrupted and bankrupted and not to be depended upon. I still think it's a mistake to go around saying that in public as a purely practical and pragmatic matter.
I agree.
Because and this is me personally, and I'm not Jesus Christ, I'm not John the Baptist, these are not the synoptic gospels. You do not have to listen to what I say. In my view, it is a mistake to go around saying in public and impressing upon hundreds of thousands of people that no laws matter, that law is out the window. We are a lawless nation, particularly with respect to the president and the administration, because the law is most pregnable to their abuses and their advances. And for as much law as they have trampled all over and disrespected, there's a lot more law that they want to disrespect. There's a lot more law that they are refraining from disrespecting until they can get the legal approval to do that.
I agree. Yep, I absolutely agree. In fact, we know that it's an important element of civil resistance to insist that the law be upheld, to not abandon the law. Those in power want to trample and dismantle the law. It is really important that we be outraged, flabbergasted. What do you mean that you're going to set aside or supersede this law? You don't have the right to do that. We have to be outraged and insist that the law be upheld. That is part of defending it. And I agree with B here. It is not useful and it's not wise for us to pretend that this is a lawless nation. The correct framing, in my opinion, my not humble opinion, is that instead we need to say the law exists, the regime is breaking the law. The regime is lawless. They are violating the Constitution and violating our rights, and we will not stand for it. Because the minute you say the law doesn't exist, then they've won. That's their goal, to dismantle the law and to be able to do whatever they want, because there is no law to constrain them. So why would you give them that? Do not give them that.